This is a long-standing project and something I committed to before the election, and therefore it's delivering on that promise, and it's consistent with what we did in the spring statement just the other day.
The Prime Minister has been visiting West Yorkshire today. He's been discussing transport in the north of England following the government's planned infrastructure investment that was announced in the spring statement.
Which is in a period where the world seems more uncertain and more unstable. It's really important we have economic stability in this country. This is really important. It's a big boost, £450 million on top of the other investments.
Remember when Keir Starmer kept banging on about that £22 billion black hole the Tories supposedly left behind? Turns out that number is about as real as Boris Johnson's commitment to COVID rules. Watch as MP Chris Phelp absolutely demolishes Starmer in Parliament with the actual figures from the Office for Budget Responsibility. Spoiler alert, it's £9.5 billion, not £22 billion. Starmer's face literally changes colours faster than a traffic light when he realises he's been caught red-handed. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video.
I want to talk to you about the spring statement. We haven't really had a chance to talk to you since then, since the impact assessment showed that 250,000 people could be pushed into poverty. I guess, on a human level, not just a political level, that must
better trains, Transpennine in particular, for the region. This is a huge region, many millions of people, huge ambition, brilliant businesses, and the transport system needs to match the ambition of the communities, and that's what we're doing today. Well, starting with that human level, my own family has been impacted by disability all my life. My late mother was extremely ill all of her life, and my late brother, who lived in Yorkshire.
Ever notice how politicians love to throw around big scary numbers? It's like they're competing in some twisted math competition where the prize is your fear. Labour's £22 billion black hole might be the gold medalist in this year's financial fiction Olympics. For weeks we've been treated to the Starmer and Reeves show, a two-person theatrical production where they've repeated 22 billion black hole more times than my mum reminds me I'm still single at family gatherings.
We've got 1 million young people, 1 in 8, who are neither learning nor earning, who are going effectively from school onto some sort of benefit. Now, some of them will need that support. I don't deny that for a moment. Was very ill and disabled, particularly when he got cancer, which he died of. So I do understand that human level. But we're addressing something which is a system which isn't working. But it can't be right that this growing number of young people, when all the evidence shows that if you're going essentially from school to some sort of benefit, then you're not likely to have the chance to get a job that's going to be secure and well paid.
They've paraded this number across every TV channel, radio station and Parliament session, like it's the hottest new boy band. The performances deserve BAFTA nominations. Honestly, Starmer with his solemn headshakes and furrowed brow, looking like he's just discovered the country's credit card statement after the Tories went on a shopping spree. And Reeves, she mastered that regretful but responsible adult expression. You know, the one your parents gave you before saying, "We're not mad, just disappointed," right before grounding you for a month. Their choreography was impeccable too. The synchronised, "we had no choice" hand gestures, the perfectly timed sighs when mentioning the mess we inherited, and my personal favourite, the dramatic pause before announcing yet another cut because of the £22 billion black hole. It was political theatre at its finest. This magical number became their Swiss Army knife of excuses. Need to raise taxes? £22 billion black hole. Want to freeze public sector wages? £22 billion black hole. Taking away winter fuel payments from pensioners who might, enjoy not freezing to death. You guessed it, that pesky £22 billion black hole again. It's amazing how one number can justify so many unpopular decisions. But here's where things get really interesting. Their math wizardry would make even Harry Potter jealous. They somehow managed to bundle together completely unrelated financial pressures, potential future spending, and existing commitments into one terrifying lump sum. It's like adding your grocery bill to your mortgage payment, throwing in your Netflix subscription, and then claiming you're £300,000 in debt for milk and cereal. This isn't the first rodeo in political number manipulation, of course. Remember Boris Johnson's Brexit bus with its famous £350 million weekly EU contribution that could go to the NHS? Or Trump's inauguration crowd that was apparently the biggest in history, despite what those pesky photographs showed. Politicians love their creative accounting almost as much as they love avoiding direct questions. But then enter stage right. Chris Phelp, Conservative MP, armed with nothing but the actual Office for Budget Responsibility report and, get this, the radical ability to read it. Talk about bringing a fact to a fiction fight. In what might be the parliamentary equivalent of dropping the mic, Phelp confronted Starmer directly, stating, "Nowhere in that report, nowhere does it mention 22 billion. It's not there at all. In fact, the only reference they have to a number is to be found on page 2 and in table 1, and even the Treasury, straining every sinew, could only find numbers that added up to 9.5. The chamber went quieter than a library during final exams. This wasn't just a factual correction. It was like watching someone point out the emperor has no clothes, while the emperor is mid-speech about his fabulous new outfit. The OBR report, which Labour had been waving around as proof of their doomsday scenario, actually showed nothing close to their £22 billion claim. Even former Conservative Chancellor Jeremy Hunt jumped into the fray, calling Labour's number nonsense and pointing out that no independent economist backed up their inflated figure. But by then the damage was done. The government had already used this phantom figure to justify policies affecting millions of Brits. They'd cut winter fuel payments for pensioners, proposed various tax hikes, and were setting the stage for more belt-tightening, all to address a crisis that was more political invention than financial reality. The most telling moment came when the camera caught Starmer's face during Phelp's takedown. His expression was a masterpiece, part deer in headlights, part person who just realised they left their front door wide open during a 2-week vacation, with a sprinkle of, "Did I leave the oven on?" panic. For a brief moment, the polished politician facade cracked, and we got a glimpse of someone caught in their own manufactured crisis. So this whole £22 billion crisis has basically evaporated faster than Liz Truss's political career. What we're left with is Labour's credibility looking about as solid as a chocolate teapot in the Sahara. Starmer and his team have some serious explaining to do now that they've been caught red-handed inflating numbers like a bouncy castle salesman. The fallout from this exposure isn't just embarrassing, it's raised fundamental questions about whether we can trust anything coming out of number 10 these days. When your entire economic strategy is built on a number that turns out to be completely made up, that's not just a little oopsie, that's straight up misleading the public. Next time a politician tries to scare you with massive numbers to justify making your life harder, remember this debacle. Math doesn't lie, but apparently politicians still think they can get away with it. Spoiler alert, they can't. At least not when someone bothers to actually read the report.